Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video. This is another US geography type reaction, and I'm actually going to react to this on YouTube. I've been sort of scouting through my YouTube in general, and I've noticed I'm actually able to sort of watch videos without stuttering, which is promising. Again, my hotspot either decides to work really well, which now it actually is working really well, or it just decides to just not work at all. But I'm going to try and take advantage of it working good at the moment, so I'm going to try and do as many videos as possible. And this one is the top 10 most secluded towns in the United States of America, some footage from Freeway Gym. But I guess this is like towns that are sort of in the middle of nowhere, like far away from like major cities, or like far away from like shops, like hour drive, 2 hour drive things. Because I've seen videos before, and so like it was to do like some of the weirdest towns, and some of the towns are like so like far away from every other sort of and every single, just any sort of cities or towns basically that have like shops or whatever. So they're so like sort of far on their own, and some of the towns had like what are they called? What are they called? Like groups of people. What are they called? Groups of people that like believe certain things and have like a sort of belief system, which is strange. I know not all these towns will, and I assume none of these towns actually will, but I know a lot of those sort of towns that are in the middle of nowhere just have sort of weird things going on. Again, I don't expect it on this one, but that's just what I remember from previous videos. And yeah, the video is from World According to Briggs. I done a reaction to him yesterday, and I really enjoyed the video, and I'm definitely down to do more. But yeah, let's just get into this one. Quick shout out to my Twitter and my Instagram, links in the description for that. Same for my Patreon. I'm trying to get back onto the Patreon reactions because, yeah, basically I'm not posting there in a long time, and I'm trying to get back onto it because, again, I've just struggled posting at the moment, but I'm going to get back onto that. So for those interested, that's there. Same for the YouTube. I'm hoping to get back onto this, but let's check this out and let's see what towns actually are on here, and how secluded they actually are. Because I do find it crazy how some cities can be some towns or villages or whatever, or just places where people live, can be so far away from anything, sort of like anything that has like shops and all this kind of stuff.
Hey, welcome back everybody. This is the World According to Briggs, and I'm Briggs. On this channel we do lists about locations, towns, cities, states in the US. Soon we're going to be branching out to other countries. I've been getting a lot of requests about Canada. So last week while doing research on a few of my lists, I came across some very secluded towns in the United States. Some towns in this country are 4 to 5 hours away from any other town or city. We have some in Alaska that are even further. All the towns on this list started in these locations for a reason. So we're going to get into it and find out where they are and why they are. So here's my top 10 most secluded towns in America.
10.
Number 10. Red River, New Mexico. The town of Red River sprung up in the 1870s when miners were drawn in by gold strikes in the area. It was named after a red-tinted stream that flows through the center of town. Red River is one of my favorite town names in the whole country. Don't know why.
That is interesting.
By 1895, Red River was a booming mining camp with
the river
gold,
ain't even
silver,
red.
and copper in abundance. And the population is estimated to have grown to about 3,000 people. Mining hit its peak in the late 1800s, and by 1905 the mining for the most part had dried up, and most of the people left. The town turned into a tourist location and a great spot for trout fishing, and later on skiing. The last mining extended till about 1931. By that time, tourism had become the real economic force, and the town survived. This place is a secluded mountain town, and the closest city is Santa Fe, about 2 to 2.5 hours away. There's nothing in between Santa Fe and Red River, and before the comments come flying in, I know they have some small roadside towns along the route. They're just glorified rest stops. Quit typing. Number 9. Caribou, Maine. The first settlers came to what is now Caribou in the 1820s. Between 1838 and 1840, a war flared up between the United States and Canada, and the Battle of Caribou occurred in December of 1838. The dispute was over the proper use of the word A. Just kidding. It was about an international boundary. Now, it delayed a settlement of the area till after a treaty was signed in 1842. Now, what makes Caribou so secluded? Well, for starters, it's one of the most northeastern cities in the United States. It's a 3-hour drive from Bangor, Maine. Bangor, Maine isn't even that big, but it's 3 hours away from that. Now, it does have a few really small towns along the way.
What is this? What the hell is this? What? Help feed the I don't know what that says. The goats? Help feed the goats? Is that goats? What the heck is that?
But for the most part, you're looking at forest out your side windows on your 3-hour drive. And if it's winter, the trip's going to be even longer. Maine is kind of sparse when it comes to people and towns, so it isn't hard to have a secluded town or two. They have a lot of woods out there. They even had a dude living in the woods outside of Rome, Maine, for 30 years. For 30 years, this guy avoided people. Now, there were the occasional sightings and rumors of him, that there was a hermit at what they called North Pond, or North Pond, yeah, that was it. Now, recently he was arrested for breaking into cabins, and when they interviewed him, he said he hadn't had a conversation with another human being in 27 years.
That's just
27
crazy,
years.
man.
Another human being. And he said human being. In that 27 years, was he communicating with forest creatures? What was going on with that dude? Number 8. Crested, Butte, Colorado. The East River Valley where Crested Butte is located was once used as a summer residence for the Ute people. The bad news is they were quickly displaced when European Americans first entered the area. And I'm sure at some point the Ute people thought, great, white people, there goes the neighborhood. The first white people to explore the valley were beaver trappers. And we all know when people start trapping your beaver, it's time to find a new home. Nothing worse than someone poaching your beaver. Crested Butte is a ski resort town that spans only about a half a mile, maybe a little more. It has about 1,400 permanent residents and is 21 miles away from the nearest small town. And Denver, that's about a 4.5-hour drive. What also makes this place so secluded is that all but one of the roads to Crested Butte get closed during the winter, and it's real easy to get snowed in here. And being snowed in sucks, especially if you don't have any beaver. Moving on. Number 7. Point Roberts, Washington. Point Roberts was created when the United Kingdom and the United States settled Pacific Northwest American-Canadian border dispute in the mid-19th century with the Oregon Treaty. Both parties agreed that the 49th parallel would, basically cut the country off. Canada above the 49th parallel, United States below. The downside is
this place is crazy.
Point Roberts is kind of in a weird place. It's below the 49th parallel, but separate from the United States that way. So you have to actually go up through Canada. Now, over the years, there's been questions about seceding from the United States and becoming part of the Canadian territory. Nothing's really happened with that. Now, I've talked about this place in past videos, and it's one of the places I'd love to retire to. Now, what makes Point Roberts so secluded is you have to cross into Canada, then back in the United States for your 2-hour trip to Seattle, which is the closest major city. So you have to leave the little nipple of land that is Point Roberts, go into Canada,
weird, man.
well, kind of get close to Vancouver, and come back down through Blaine, Washington, and on to Seattle. It's just kind of weird that you have to cross into another country to get here. So that's what makes Point Roberts so secluded. Number 6. Tucumcari, New Mexico. Tucumcari is the actual inspiration for this list. I was doing a list and saw Tucumcari and how far out of the way it was, it just made me think of secluded towns. Tucumcari is truly in the middle of nowhere. Now, I talked about this one before, like I said, and the one thing I didn't talk about was how it's part of the historic Route 66. If you don't know anything about Route 66, it's one of the original highways in the U.S. highway system, and was kind of the only way to get to the West Coast back in the 30s and 40s. What's neat about Tucumcari is they really haven't moved that town past the 30s and 40s like the rest of the country.
Wow.
It's kind of stuck in a time warp. You go there and it's just old buildings and extra wide roads like you'd see in
this is so weird to me. This is like a town. Towns in the US are so different to the UK. Like, when I think of a town, I'm thinking of like a village. Are villages things? Like, are villages... I can't speak. Are villages in the US? Are they just called towns in the US as well? Is that just their sort of like the US term for villages? Since the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution prohibits the federal government from legislating on local government, the states are free to have political subdivisions called villages or not. Okay, so towns are what you use to refer to villages. In the UK, towns are sort of like in between cities and villages. Villages are like the really small ones where like a few people live, maybe a couple shops here and there. Towns are like not huge, but they're bigger. And then obviously cities are cities. But it is interesting to see that. Oh, so it does actually. So some places in the US actually use the term village. I don't know then. Would this be considered a town or a village? This place? Because if this is considered a village, like in terms of like the UK term, this is so different to how we have our villages. Even our towns, to be honest, it's just like one long road where all the shops are beside, like the houses, etc.
Please, it's weird. Now, it's secluded. The nearest cities are Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's about 2.5 hours to the west.
2.5
and Amarillo,
hours.
Texas, which is about 2 hours to the east. And in between there, you have what appears to be filming locations for Mad Max films. Tucumcari is just desert.
That's crazy.
Number 5. Nome, Alaska.
Okay,
There's
Alaska's
no reason to live in Nome, Alaska unless you're avoiding a subpoena or you've always wanted to live in an igloo. Now that's a quote from the Nome City Hall website. Just kidding. I don't think they have internet, much less a website in Nome, Alaska. The largest city in Alaska is Anchorage. I can't give you the drive time from Nome to Anchorage because they don't have any roads that go from Nome to Anchorage. They only have one road out of Nome, and that's to a place called Teller, Alaska. Why anyone would want to go to Teller is beyond me. There's only about 15 buildings in the whole town. And when I say town, I'm being generous. It's more like a camp. But if you are in Nome and you ever contemplate driving to Teller, know that the roads are only open about 4 months a year. They close it down for winter, which, if you know anything about Alaska, seems to be most of the year. But if you do need to get to Anchorage, it is about an 1.5 hour flight from Nome to Anchorage, Alaska.
These towns are so crazy, man. They look so, like, just unique.
Number 4, Ely, Nevada. Ely is the largest city in White Pine County, Nevada. Ely was founded as a stagecoach stop along the Pony Express and Central Overland Route.
No, it's not.
In 1906, copper was discovered, and Ely had a small mining boom after that. As of 2010, the population was about 4,000 people, and that's not counting the Supermax prison just outside of Ely. Now, here's a fun fact. This little town has a famous past resident. First Lady Pat Nixon, as in President Tricky Dick Nixon's wife. She was born there in 1912. Now, Ely has some other little towns around it, but for the most part, it's far and away from any real cities. Las Vegas is about 3.5 hours to the southwest, and Salt Lake City being 3.5 hours to the east. I drove through Ely once. My impression of the place, for my brief time there, was that Ely has a whole bunch of senior citizens. And I'm not talking just there was a lot of them. There was a whole bunch. As in 90%, it seemed like. In my brief time there. Now, I didn't spend a whole bunch of time, maybe a couple hours. Every single person I saw downtown Ely, including a little park there, was a senior citizen. I saw one person under the age of 40, and I think he was a cop. So, if you like bingo, you hate traffic, and you like to be near prisoners, you might want to move to Ely. Number 3, Neah Bay, Washington. Neah Bay is the Macaw Reservation in Washington. The population was about 865 back in 2010. Now, it's across from the Canada-US border in British Columbia. This is the most northwestern town on mainland United States. It's the far northwest you can go. And before you comment, Alaska is not on the mainland. Quit typing. The local economy is sustained mostly by fishing and tourism, and during the summer, Neah Bay is a popular fishing area for sports fishermen. The big draw to this place is nature. This place has some of the best hikes in the whole Pacific Northwest. This place is really out there. The closest town is almost 2 hours away, and that would be Port Angeles, and that's on a really sketchy coastal highway. Seattle is almost 5 hours away, still along that pretty sketchy coastal highway, and then you gotta take a ferry and go through the woods and some other things. Wear a seatbelt. You're probably gonna hit a deer eventually.
He's secluded.
Number 2, Angle Inlet, Minnesota. Angle Inlet is in Lake of the Woods County, Minnesota. Population is only about 60 people, and that's back in the 2010 census. This community is part of the Northwest Angle, the only place in mainland United States north of the 49th parallel. This place is hard to get to. The first closest small town is War Road, Minnesota, and that's about an 1.5 hours away. This is another one of those places you have to leave the United States, enter Canada, leave Canada, and enter the United States to get any place. Even in that part of Canada, there's really nothing around it. Now, War Road is just a glorified truck stop like a lot of the places I talk about. The closest small city, I guess, would be Grand Forks, North Dakota, and that's almost 4 hours away from War Road. So we're talking 5.5 hours, 6 hours to get any place.
Bro, I can do that.
I don't know why.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't be that far away from everything. I mean, people like it. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I couldn't
anyone would really want to live here at Angles Inlet. Unless you maybe taunting Canadians or something like that. You could always stand on your dock and yell at passing Canadian boats, hey, you frickin' Canuck, here I am, I'm above the 49th parallel, suck it. You know, I mean, if that's your thing, why not?
But there's such a small population as well, just what is there to do?
Number 1, Barrow, Alaska. Barrow is the largest U.S. city north of the Arctic
at the top
Circle.
of Alaska as well.
Nearby Point Barrow is the country's northernmost point. The location has been home of the Inuit people for more than 1,500 years. This place has no roads in or out of Barrow. Boat, fly, dog sled, those are your only options. This is a place where the snow never melts, the ground is always frozen, and the snow falls midsummer. These are the only people in the world that are hoping global warming is true and would happen faster than it already is. This place is so far north the sun doesn't come up for almost 3 months during the winter. Imagine having a one-night stand in the winter, 3 months of awkward morning conversations. Now, there's an old joke about Barrow, Alaska. This guy walks into a bar, talks to a girl. She tells him to kiss her where the sun doesn't shine, so he buys 2 tickets to Barrow, Alaska. Barrow, Alaska is a 5.5-hour flight from Anchorage, Alaska, the biggest town in Alaska.
A flight? Oh my god.
And it's about a 2 to 3 month sled ride if you don't like airplanes. Those are your only options in Barrow, Alaska. Barrow, Alaska is...
Why is there cars there if you can't drive anywhere else other than in this town?
The second furthest north town in the world. There's one in Siberia, Russia, that's a little bit further, but that's about it. Barrow, Alaska is the most secluded place in the United States. Well, that's it.
I want to search up... Is it Barrow or Barrow? Barrow... What the hell's happening here? Barrow Alaska. I know I spelled it wrong. Barrow? Is it Barrow? Wait, what? Wait. Ukjavik. Wait, what? I'm so confused. This is the one, isn't it? Why is it called this? There's a different name. But look at it. It's literally in the middle. Mate. That is crazy, man. People literally choose to live there. I mean, I rate it, but mate. God, no, you could not catch me being there. No, you could not. Wait, I want to just zoom out. I want to actually zoom in to the city a bit more. Let's just search up Barrow, Alaska population. He probably said it, but I forgot. Alaska population. 4,000. 4,000. I want to see like a sort of a town near me that's like relatively small. Wyndham population. 16,000, and this is the small town, bro. Also, I want to see how people pronounce this, because in the UK, this town is pronounced Wyndham. But look at the spelling, it just doesn't make sense. 16,000. Let's look at like... Trimmingham? I've spelled it wrong. Okay, that's a bit too small. Mundelein. I can't spell. 2006, and this place is tiny. This is only a little bit bigger, but this is literally in the middle of nowhere. Mate, that is crazy. That's really like put the perspective to me, man. This, oh my god. I mean, if you live there, I rate it, but you are crazy. You are crazy. Now let's zoom out. I want to see like how, so Anchorage, or how you say it. Where is Anchorage? There. Jesus. That is crazy. So flipping far. I mean, I rate it, but goddamn, that is a tough life to live. But yeah, I love these videos so much. They make me look into these random things, and I just love seeing these videos. He didn't include any specific place in Wyoming, because Wyoming as a whole qualifies for this video. Every time I talk to someone, I wish I could go 27 years without talking to anyone again. Alaska is amazing no matter where you go. The remoteness of it is what makes it even better. The fewer people, the better. But some, obviously, again, like some people really love sort of like remote or secluded sort of towns, don't they? Guy hasn't talked about anybody in 27 years. No one around to aggravate him. Doesn't sound bad at all. And we wonder why Stephen King, living in Maine, doesn't have to try to write stranger than fiction horror stories. I literally watched a Stephen King horror movie, the Netflix one, Tall Grass, the other day. It was like, what the fuck am I watching? Do you really think it's called Bangor, Maine? Or Bangor, Maine? A lot of beaver jokes, but they fell flat. Nothing wrong with living in the woods and not talking to anyone for 27 years. Pretty awesome, actually. I mean, fair enough, but that cannot be me, man. People could do what they got to do, though, innit? People enjoy that life, fair enough, but... Another interesting video. I saw that he's actually done another one. I was initially going to do the other one, but I saw it was actually... This one was older. This one's 3 years old. That one's 2 years old. So I'll probably do this one soon. Wait, actually, which one did I do? I did this one. This one. And then I'm going to do this one next. But yeah, interesting video. I love seeing these types of things. But again, if you want more from the channel, let me know some videos you want to see. And yeah, until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.